Welcome to Go-to-Market Science. In this podcast, we share tangible, actionable playbooks from the trenches, working as go-to-market strategy and RevOps consultants for our clients here at Union Square Consulting, and candid conversations with revenue leaders in the market that have been there. Now let's get into it. Today, we're going to dive into how and why AI won't fix a broken go-to-market engine. And our special guest today is Sangram Vajre, the co-founder and CEO of Go-to-Market Partners. He was previously the CMO at Pardot before and slightly after the acquisition by Salesforce, and then a co-founder, CMO, and chief evangelist at Terminus. Sangram, thanks for joining us today.
Eddie, this is going to be a fun conversation, man. I think we cross paths, seems like at Salesforce, as we're talking about. So we have been all benefited from the SaaS world, and the world that you and I know and grew up in is rapidly changing. So let's talk about it.
I'm excited to dive into it. My experience at Salesforce has formed a lot of what I say on this podcast, what we write about in our content. It was the impetus for me starting this company, but it's also been 10 years since I worked there, so a lot's evolved. We're going to talk about AI. There's some new things out there, and so I try not to rest on that either. But today, what I want to talk about with you, and some things I've heard you say publicly, is that every go-to-market team is implementing AI. I think I saw a post, and I just thought of this just now, where you had said that you're in front of a room full of revenue leaders, and you ask everybody to raise their hand if they're using AI. Everybody raises their hand, and then keep your hand up if you're seeing an impact from that. And I think if I got this right, every hand went down.
It's like a fun thing. I was talking yesterday to a smaller group, and I pretty much use it. I feel like I have a one-trick pony, like opening starter for me. If the go-to-market thing didn't work, maybe I should do late night comedy. I don't know, something like that. But I would do the same thing where it's like, well, how many of you are doing AI? Everybody's so enthusiastically raising their hand. And then I would ask, like, well, how many of you are using AI for being productive? And everybody's like, yay, we are doing like hundreds of hours of ChatGPT or Gemini. Like, great. Like, how many of you feel productive? And then there is that silence and that weird laugh and nervous laugh of like, well, really not. I don't know if I'm making progress. And that happens so often in a room. Like, I've been speaking at Inbound for 10 years in a row. So in a room of 1,500 people, the same thing is happening. In a room of 25 people, and I do CEO roundtables as well, and it is just same story. And what was most interesting about it around AI was last week I was running a CEO roundtable. Everyone is about 20 million in revenue, and we were talking about AI, and everybody was talking about how they're using AI. So Eddie, this will probably resonate with you and your audience. They were talking about, well, we're using AI to automate stuff. We're using AI to reduce headcount. We're using AI to just do things that we don't want to do manually. And for a moment, I was like, man, I've been hearing this for the last 1 year. Something doesn't feel right. So I asked this question to this group, and it's like, well, how many of you are using AI to grow your business? And I thought that was a dumb question to ask in a group of like 20 million plus in revenue CEOs. And it was the same weird kind of quiet feel around it. I'm like, I don't understand. We're all supposed to create business. I mean, the whole reason we're entrepreneurs or CEOs or all that is because we want to create value in the market and create more business and more customers. Why is it that the immediate inclination of everyone is to reduce costs to do AI? I think we're just looking at it wrong. I don't know what's your experience has been as you're talking to a lot of people.
Yeah, so I cut off my intro halfway through, and what I was about to say is that like we need to talk about building the foundation, and that's my answer to your question. And I want to dive into this, and I think like my initial response to your question here is that first of all, there's a lot of go-to-market organizations, especially at 20, 30, 40 million that don't have the foundation in place. When we see companies at 50 million, 100 million, 200 million, sometimes they've got the foundation in place in certain areas of the business. Other areas they don't. Maybe they've got SMB dialed in, but enterprise is really struggling. Or maybe SMB was dialed in 5 years ago, and now the market's evolved, and that motion is no longer working. And so we see a lot of this. And then Everybody's feeling FOMO. I'm feeling FOMO. I spend half of my time talking to the same private equity and venture capital investors that are backing these companies and sitting in the boardrooms with these revenue leaders. And those guys are asking me, what are you guys doing with AI? I need something with AI. And I remember I made a comment to one of them, and I won't name drop, but this is a major, major private equity firm that invests in extremely mature businesses. And the person I was talking to is deep into go-to-market. This is not like an ex-Goldman Sachs analyst that's just learning about go-to-market. And what did I say to him? I made some kind of comment like, some of this is all BS. And he's like, well, even if it's BS, like I got the pressure from my senior people that we got to go implement this. And I don't think AI is BS, but I do think that we are all feeling this massive amount of FOMO. And I'll bounce this off of you to get your reaction. Let's take this back to Salesforce and Pardot or HubSpot. And let's compare it and contrast this, right? So many organizations right now, their answer to AI, and I was talking to a friend about this, and I'm like, what are you doing with AI? And she's like, she runs a reasonably large company. And she's like, yeah, we got AI down. And I'm like, what does that mean? What are you doing? And she's like, oh yeah, we got Copilot. And I'm like, granted, this was like a year ago, to be fair. But I'm like, so you just bought everybody Copilot licenses. Like, okay, I'm not sure that that's the full answer here. And it's the same thing. Like we bought everybody HubSpot licenses. We bought everybody Salesforce licenses, as opposed to, and I think anybody who's ever spent any time using Salesforce understands like it's not that easy. You have to get the right people in the room. You've got to plan this out. You have to think about who's our ICP, what's our motion, how are we doing outbound, how are we doing inbound. You map all this stuff out. There's an entire industry of RevOps people and CROs that understand this. And you just try and put all this effort in, and you hire these implementation partners, and then you spend months and months on it, and then still half the time it fails. And somehow we've jumped forward and but AI, it's a magic easy button, and it's not.
It has been like that in the beginning, right? 6 months ago or so, it was the easy button of writing copy. The fact that you could just ask a question and you just see, even to a point was, I think is so brilliant on the part of all these Gemini, ChatGPT, and all the LLMs, is that they don't give you the text, they type the text, right? So you have this nostalgia of okay, it's thinking, but of course it is already thought. It just slowing it down for us humans to understand that it's thinking. So it's creating this reverse psychology. It could have just given it to us, but it still doesn't. It types one line at a time, as if it's making it slow for us. So we will have that not just instant vomit, but instant gratification of sort of wow, this is seeing. So I think there's just so much thought that's been put out there around it. But there was a moment, Eddie, I would say, and I would submit to you, where even I felt like, oh wow, this is incredible, this is awesome, and I can do this. And the agents started to pop in, and people are starting to use agents now. So we've kind of graduated from co-pilots to agents. And now I think about is that I don't want that many agents in reality. What I really want, and all of this is just getting to that. And I think you're still in the stone age of AI as we're looking at it. 6 months from now, we'll be looking back at this conversation because we just have this limited purview as rudimentary. But I feel like what we really want is we want our business to be efficient and effective. AI, we have been using and doing every single thing on the efficiency vector, if you will. It's all about creating efficiency, but we're not really talking about effectiveness as much. And effectiveness would be what can we create more products now as a result of it in order to, based on the outcome that we're getting and what our customers want? Could we get 20 more testimonials now around this issue, that as opposed to physically going and asking the question and having the same 5 people talk about it? So I think the effectiveness, the vector is changing. So far, I would say 99% of the people are focused purely, and this is purely because we are a research company, we do so much research on this thing. We see they're all saying, I want efficiency. And there's only a few percentage of people who are saying, wait a minute, there is no point in being more efficient in this area anymore. We don't want to send more dumb emails. There's nothing going to come out of it. It's going to be negative. We want to be effective. So now we want to help make business decisions with this. That part, Eddie, I think is still yet to be seen how we all do it. There are examples that I'm seeing, but I think that's what I'm excited about the most.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think the reason for that, and I've got so much to say, it's where do I start on that? We did a podcast with Craig Rosenberg about their study.
I love Craig. Craig is awesome.
He's great. And they did an amazing study across their entire portfolio on how their portfolio is using AI. And this is exactly the distinction that they made in the study. I think they called it, if I remember correctly, phase 1 and phase 2. Have you read this study, by the way?
No, I've not. I need to reach out to Craig and read it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so he broke it down into, or I shouldn't say he, I think it was his entire team that worked on it. They broke it down into stage 1 and stage 2. And stage 1 is that efficiency, right? And stage 2 is like the actual impact on revenue. And the example that really jumped out at me, or the two examples I'll share, is like, we're going to do account research. And to like the point I made earlier, that's super easy, right? If I say I'm trying to sell into Pepsi, I need to go read Pepsi's annual report. I can pop into any LLM and just say, read Pepsi's annual report and give me a summary and how it relates to our product. It's not hard to do. Any sales rep can do that. Now, sure, there's ways we can make that better, and we could build a gem or a custom GPT. We could build an agent to do that, but you can get like relative value out of that. But what you're doing is you're saving some time. A really, really good enterprise sales rep selling into Pepsi is not necessarily going to like double their close rate because they have AI reading 10Ks for them. It's just going to take them less time to do that. That's a phase 1. But phase 2 in the report, the use case that really jumped out was campaign analytics, right? And you can't do campaign analytics in AI if you don't have that foundation in place, if you don't have accurate data. If, for example, we're trying to do campaign analytics to see which marketing campaigns generated the most leads, but we have no clear I'll share a concrete example from a company I was working with. I was looking at their leads and I'm like, I can't figure out what's going on with your leads here. Like what's going on? And the definition of the lead was any form fill is an MQL. But 6 months ago, it was based on a lead score. And then 6 months before that, it was any lead that fills out a form. So you look at a year and a half of history and you're like, this is just an absolute mess. Now you feed that into AI and say, okay, tell me which campaigns are most successful at generating leads. Like, what are you going to get out of that?
Yeah. The context is incredibly important. This is why I think I love that example, because I think when you create agents, I think agents are going to be running on those campaigns and they're going to be independent and they're going to almost compete with each other to show value in it. Whereas the context of why you're trying to do the business, the effectiveness vector, I think that is the hardest thing to do, Eddie. And I feel like right now, it's really the most exciting time to be in go-to-market, first and foremost, right? Because we all get to do it. And especially if you're a big company, if you have been an executive for 20 years or more, you actually are able to have so many things that you have always wanted to do or hear or see in the data and ask or have somebody do it. You actually can do those things, but you're going to need to have this contextual layer on top of it. This is the hardest part to do. I feel like most people are not even spending enough time. I'll give you another really interesting example on it. We have something called as a go-to-market operating system, which is an 8-question operating system that we have companies. We have over 1,000 companies have gone through it. They've run on GTM OS, as they say it. And one of the questions is simply this. And again, this is the kind of stuff that really is really interesting. The question initially, when we started the research 4 years ago, when we wrote the book Move, was where can you grow? That was the question. And we found out that's the worst possible question to ask as an executive. You are a 30, 40, 50, $100 million company. Because at that time, you're not looking to grow for just the growth reasons. You're actually trying to grow profitably. You're actually trying to show NRR outcome on it. You're actually trying to see which segments of our customer base are actually the right kind of customers. So we need to grow in those segments or those industries or those verticals or those stages. So your answer to the where can you grow is not enough. So we added these two words to it, and which has become the defining way, and the intentionality around all those 8 questions is with some of these really fine-tuned changes, which is where can you grow the most? We added the most to it. And as soon as we added the question, the most to it, and the CEO and the executive team, as they go through this process, they're like, well, that changes everything. If you want to figure out where you want to grow the most, well, of these 5 options, the 3 this is where we can grow the most. We have data for it. We have customers for it. We have a product for it. We have a market for it. We have a point of view for it. We have a go-to-market motion for it. All those things that require you to grow it. We have the most gross margin on it. So all executive level decisions can be done at that level. But when you take away those words like the most, the contextual layer, the effectiveness layer to it, then it's anybody's game. Everybody can be running in 80 different directions. And that is what I think I see a lot happening is people with AI can move so fast that you could go in the wrong direction really, really fast, as opposed to taking a step back and asking bare minimum, basic, but very intentional questions like where can you grow the most? And I'll call for a really good debate in it at an executive level, and then use data and then feed that intelligence back into your AI system to say, all right, this is the context. Here is what it means to be successful. Here's what a successful campaign looks like you gave that example as. And now based on this, look at the data and tell me what happened. That level of depth, oh my gosh, like I think AI can do it, but it requires a lot of intentionality.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And I'd love to unpack that a little bit because we have sort of some content that it goes down a similar path. We call it the go-to-market ops decision tree. And your go-to-market OS, I've looked at it and it's really great. And it has a little bit wider purview than ours because we're kind of a little bit more focused on just the operations. Like we try not to like get out over our skis and say like, this is how you do like positioning and marketing. I don't know if we're in RevOps. I'm not sure what RevOps means anymore. Cause so many people say RevOps and they just think like, okay, we're going to build out Salesforce and HubSpot. And I think that's great. We do a lot of that work, but for me, it's more than that. For me, it's figuring out, answering your question, where can we grow the most? And I think your perspective on it is slightly wider than ours because we're not experts in like positioning and, market strategy and things like that. But within ops, one of the questions we ask in our go-to-market ops decision tree is, where's the greatest opportunity to impact revenue? Is it new business or is it NRR? Unpack that next. Is it more pipeline or is it closing more of the deals that we're already generating? But one of the challenges that I have, and I want to bounce this off of you, is I feel like it's a very similar question to what you're asking. But then my problem is like when I'm on the phone with a CRO, 9 times out of 10, the answer I get is we need to generate more pipeline.
Yeah.
And so I'll say, okay, well, let's talk about NRR. And one of the articles that I read that inspired this topic with you on your newsletter mentioned how expansion is 60% of net new revenue for companies over 50 million ARR. And I've seen this statistic elsewhere. Okay, so expansion is this massive opportunity, which is part of NRR. And my conversations with CROs are 9 times out of 10 just skipping right past that. And I want to push back. Some of these CROs don't own CS, so okay, cool. Like, let's give them some forgiveness there. But then we skip over pipeline, and then I ask, well, what's your close rate? Well, it's 12% right now. Okay, so if your close rate is 12%, why would we spend all of our time, money, and energy generating more pipeline instead of fixing the fundamental process that is causing you to have a 12% close rate and turning it into a 20% close rate? We had Kyle Norton on our podcast a few weeks ago, and he talked about how his team used AI to improve their close rate from what was already 38% to 53%. Now, I don't know how they set the bar for an SQO in their organization, but like, I think the average B2B SaaS company right now is looking at 10 to 20% close rates. And if you're just saying like, let's generate more pipeline. And so what I want to actually do is come out with a benchmark report. And I have like a really like mixed feelings about benchmarks. Cause every company is unique and different, but I struggle with this idea of just asking a revenue leader, like, where do you think you can grow the most? Where do you think is the best opportunity? Because how do you know if that answer is right?
Yeah. Okay, this is so good. All right, so we have, and I put this literally. If people are watching video, they could see it. But I'm showing you a sticky note almost. I have this in front of me every single day, Eddie, and this is part of our manifesto that we wrote as part of when we built the go-to-market operating system that came out of the research. And so I'm going to rattle off the 5 things that came out of it, and then we can dig into any one of them that maybe more or less supports your thesis on this. Number 1. The CEO owns go-to-market. We don't have any other. We asked so much. So just let me rattle it up, and I can talk more about how we went through that. So CEO owns go-to-market. Number 2, go-to-market is a transformational process. Number 3, business transformation happens in teams. Number 4, you have to trust in the NRR as your main metric. And number 5, systems are better than goals. These are our systems are better than goals. Whatever goal they have, like we want to go double the revenue, like, oh yeah, what's your system to get there is the typical question, and then you hear crickets. So these 5 are the key part of our manifesto, which really says the reason that question probably does not go well with the CRO is because that question is really directed to the CEO. If you think about the CEO responding, that's why we do business transformation happens in team. We tell that, look, we're not a coaching business. We are not actually coming and trying to coach you, marketing to be a better marketer or sales being a better sales. Like, as you said, we have a broader purview. We only do at a team level. The CEO has to be in the room because there is no go-to-market decision that's going to happen. For example, ICP, they would delegate to marketing. We're like, no. ICP is the business decisions. Go-to-market is the business. So we're going to go through this process together. And so in that room, when we ask that question, where can we grow the most? That brings the debate out, Eddie, really, really well. And that's what we're looking for. But you're absolutely right. If we individually would have gone to every single individual and say, hey, CMO, where can you grow the most? Hey, CRO, where can we grow the most? We'll get different answers. And there is no reconciliation between them. But when we ask that as a group by setting the standard, like, hey, there is no marketing sales here. You all are business leaders. You happen to know a lot about one specific area or the other. So we're not going to finger point. We're not here to talk about marketing, sales, or anything like that. We're talking about business here. So we set that foundation very clear. CEO, you own go-to-market. That doesn't mean you execute it, but you own it. So you need to be in the room. And then once that setup is there, then every one of these questions that we talk about, we ask that question open-endedly, and then we give them a framework to think about it. Because sometimes you need a framework to like, well, what does that even mean? And how far can we go? And, so we just give them a framework to help them think through it. But it's so important, Eddie, for that exact reason you mentioned. If we don't do this as a group, as a team, then this is the hardest thing, because the same CRO 2 months from now, when they haven't met their quota, he or she would have a different answer, because they are so focused on their own little silo, not go to market as a business. But if you have CEO in the room, then we can challenge back, like, well, is pipeline really the thing? And the CEO might say, well, it is important, but what we really need this next 3 quarters is a higher profitable business. So we need more NRR expansion. Okay, well, that means, are you okay not having enough pipeline? That decision CRO can't have by themselves because they're numbers. So in that way, we're able to really bring this together, like what's really important. And we can have 80 priorities. What are the top 3? But it has to be done as a team. If it's not done as a team, that's why a lot of companies fail at it.
I love that. I mean, there's so many challenges that happen when you don't have the CEO owning go-to-market. And one of the biggest challenges I have is that, at least for a long time, I've been operating under the assumption that the CRO is supposed to own go-to-market, even though I'm aware that the percentage of CROs out there that own sales and marketing and CS and whatever else you want to throw into go-to-market, like, or is the SDR team part of those 3 things that I mentioned? Is that a separate thing? What about partners and channel? What about the sales engineering team, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? The amount of CROs that truly own that, truly make the decision to say, okay, these are marketing goals. The CMO reports to me. They don't report to the CEO, they report to me, and I'm the one that determines whether, like, how we measure their success. I'm the one that owns the reports. That is a vast minority of CROs out there. And so then you end up with this like gap where, the most common example obviously is like the CMO that has an MQL target and the CRO that has a new business target, and then somebody else in customer success that has a net revenue retention target. And they're all, it's not even like that they're bad operators. They're incentivized and judged, and their job security relies on them fighting each other. And so I struggle with this. I'm not the CEO of a $100 million company. I'm the CEO of a much smaller company. But like every time I wake up, I'm like, how am I supposed to not care about go-to-market? And I love go-to-market, so that one's easy. And then for me, like, it's also like I have to care about product. And like, to like a technical CEO, I would say, like, what would you think of me if I said, I don't care about product? Like, what we do for our customers is not important to me. I only think about go-to-market. I can't process that statement.
No, and go-to-market includes product. I think the funniest thing we did a skit some time, it's 2 years ago. we did a video. I need to go find it. This video is really, we did a video of like the CEO, the CMO, the CRO, and the head of sales all sitting in a room and making go-to-market decisions on a whiteboard. And the product guy walks by the conference room looking like, you're making decisions for me to deliver something that you're selling. Shouldn't I be in that room? And he's just pacing outside that conference room trying to get in the room. And why? And they're like, no, we'll talk to you later. And they all come out of the room after that and then sell the product. All right, you need to deliver these 3 products because we need to sell this thing. And he's like, why am I not in that meeting? Well, you're not go-to-market. And he's like, I am part of the go-to-market. So for every CEO and for every heart beating out there with that soul-crushing scenario, it is literally that no, the product, the sales, marketing, product, RevOps, if they have, like, these are important. The people who are actually gonna change or move your business is go-to-market. So if I were to write my 4th book, I think the title of that book will be, if it is on go-to-market, it literally will say go-to-market is the business. So there is no one that can escape if they have facing anything related to the customer. So with that being said, I want to tell you a quick story, Eddie, because you made me think about it. I made a note of it. Must be about 6 months ago, a friend of mine, really, really incredible CMO, she posted on LinkedIn like, hey, we created, I think, 35 million pipeline or something like that. The largest ever created pipeline in the history of the company. And we're so excited and all that stuff. And about 3 weeks later, she was fired or let go. And so I know her, so I called her up. And that's why I gave the numbers a little bit broad. So, people can trace anything back to it. So I called her up and said, hey, what happened? You just posted like a few weeks ago that you had the most amazing results and whatnot. She's like, we were working on the wrong ICP. The pipeline that was created for the type of customers were the highest churning customers in the history of the business. We were just getting that and the pipeline was racking up and the CEO never said anything other than like, oh, great pipeline numbers. But then when we dug into, not every dollar amount in the pipeline is the same. So whatever let's say it was 35 million pipeline, really only 5 million pipeline was good pipeline. Rest 30 million pipeline wasn't good pipeline. It wasn't good business. They actually wanted to not have that kind of, like you said, like you may not want super early stage companies to be your early customers. So she's like, I just created even a bigger problem for the business now. So, and she wasted so much sales time and not just marketing campaign dollars because they doubled it because they were getting leads and pipeline numbers were going up. And nobody looked at it until 6 weeks into it. So that made me recognize that, man, so many companies miss out on that. Imagine now if they would have sat in a room when she was going to run this campaign as an executive team and the CEO was in the room and said, hey, this is our ICP. We would go through the GTM process and the CEO is in the room and we say, hey, this is our ICP. The sales, the marketing, the CS, the product person, the ops person, the CEO has to agree that this is our most important ICP. If they would have done that, they would not have lost millions of dollars in campaign budget and all the money and time and effort. And now they were crawling back out of it because they had bad customers that they didn't want it. All of this happened because they never work as a group, which is why the number 3 on this is business transformation, and go-to-market really leads to transformation if you do it right. Business transformation really, truly happens in teams. It has never happened in the history of anything that I've seen in a marketing team or a sales team or a CS it doesn't happen in individual departments. It actually happens in teams as a go-to-market team. So that story was like, again, heartbreaking story for me.
Quick note before we keep going. If you're listening to this and thinking, I want to do this stuff for my company, we've published the actual go-to-market ops frameworks that we use with our clients every day at unionsquareconsulting.com/frameworks. You can find our frameworks on diagnosing go-to-market ops, pipeline management, outbound, and even our proprietary go-to-market efficiency pyramid framework. They're all free and ungated right on our website. Go to unionsquareconsulting.com/frameworks, and the link will be in the show notes as well. All right, let's get back to it.
I mentioned Scale Venture Partners' report on AI. We also recently released something where we put together 7 of those reports, including that one. And I don't remember which report it was, but these were from like Pavilion and EBSTA and like every leading organization in, it might have been one of yours, I'm not sure, because I didn't put it together. But every leading organization in go-to-market right now, and one of the stats that came out was that ICP pipeline is 8 times more likely to close, and yet only 28% of pipeline. I think this was $91 billion of pipeline across these 7 studies. Well, maybe this statistic is only for one of the studies, but still, we're talking about like massive data, right? 28% of pipeline is ICP. And what I see oftentimes is you ask the organization, like, what's your ICP? Ignoring the idea that maybe you get 5 different answers from 5 different people. They're like, well, actually, I'll give you a concrete example from a customer I was working with. It's they're literally showing me a PowerPoint slide. It's these 14 industries, and it's, in their case, it was headcount, but it could be revenue, between 10 million and $1 billion. And you're like, in North America and Europe. And it's like, oh, okay. So like, that's 20 million companies. Even if you can sell and market and serve all of the companies in those 20 million profitably, there still has to be a cohort that is more profitable. And since you can't win 20 million customers, why wouldn't you want to narrow down? And then bringing the conversation back to AI, something I'm really excited about is the concept of like dynamic ICP agents. So what if we take our customers and we take all of our financial data and we look at how much money we are spending to acquire those customers and to serve those customers and what we're making off of those customers, and we couple that with their firmographic and technographic data and their intent signals and all the other random stuff that makes true ICP. Like I'll share a couple examples. Like you might relate to this. When I was trying to sell Pardot after Salesforce acquired the company, they gave us all these like plugins for Chrome, and it's like, go to the website and look, do they have a shitty website? They spent $500. I was selling in SMB and I think what would be considered mid-market as well. If they spent $500 on their website 10 years ago, they're probably not going to buy a $20,000 marketing tool, right?
Yeah.
But how many organizations have their ICP defined with that level of granularity?
Yeah. Yeah. The most unsexy part of building a business is focus. And you and I can attest to that as CEOs and building companies, is like, what do I focus on? And the bigger the company, the harder it is to focus, because in the early days, you just gotta find somebody with a pulse and try to sell something, right? Like you literally are in a very, you're not looking at retention, expansion, like those are foreign. You're just trying. But most folks that have graduated and built $50, $100 million companies, now you're thinking about like, who is the right customer for me? And what's interesting is the more higher paying the customer, the less problems they give to you. You start recognizing that they understand the value of it. They're using it for what it's needed. And as long as it helps them do that, they're not going to keep asking you for feature updates. Whereas the smaller deals that companies close, and I've done that before, we're like, man, that person needs everything and they only paid $100. Like, what do you want? Right? Like, so there is a level of sophistication that comes with a higher paying customer, a bigger deal, a bigger account, partnership, strategic, all those things that are just not possible at a small stage companies that we see. So when I look at all of it, it reminds me of this one research we did. We've been doing this for 4 years now, Eddie. And every year we ask this question at least 7 or 8 times a year, because we have so many companies going through this process. And we ask, what are your top go-to-market problems? And we highlight 15 go-to-market problems. We do this research and we have never found a 16th one. I've always put out open LinkedIn bounty on this thing. If you find a 16th problem, I'll take you for drinks or lunch or dinner or whatever, right? Like we just think that are only based on all the research, 5 years in a row, we haven't found a 16th problem. So instead of saying, what are your go-to-market problems? We literally show these 15 problems to them and say, highlight your top 3. Eddie, the top 3 typically are these. Still, in the last 5 years. Number 1, go-to-market teams are not in sync. That's the number one thing that always happen. And we ask them, what are you trying to do? How often do you meet? Oh, we meet once a week. And what do you do in that meeting? Oh, we look at pipeline. Well, that's not how you run it. So we literally have to you change that process. Number two problem that they would say is that, well, we have to rely on heroic sales to get to the number every single quarter. That's the number two problem, which means that their ICP is not right. They're just working with one or two reps who actually help them get to the quota. It's not a standard process. And number three, and this is the part that's really interesting, is that the number three that comes up over and over again is simply this, that they're last in the deal, which means they do not have enough brand equity in the marketplace to be in the deal. So it's false positive. They will just get you on the call or get you to give a proposal so they can price compare and go with whichever customer they want to go. So all of these, at the end of the day, really those are the top three that people end up saying that these are the most important problems. And if we help you solve them, they say we would be so much further ahead. We would actually hit the numbers. We'll go the distance. We will launch new products. We'll get to a next number. But they don't. They're just never able to get through those. And that's the difference between the best companies. They're able to just isolate and start working through it. Like Salesforce, is it the best run company in the world? You and I have been there and we know like data was a mess when I was there. There was all kinds of issues across the board, but they did a few things really, really well. And that's what I find with these companies. Like, what is the one or two things you can do so well that all these other issues that you have, it's okay if they're not perfect, but you got to be able to get your ICP really, really good. And if they can take one thing from our conversation today and get their ICP right, Eddie, I think most companies will do far better than they're doing right now.
Well, it's interesting you say Salesforce's data was a mess. Maybe from a marketing perspective, I don't know. I would say from my perspective in sales, some of the data was a mess. But when you looked at like, here are our existing customers' accounts, I remember like, and for context, I was the first AE in a startup that had been built on top of the Salesforce platform. It was an ISV partner, like a solution for private equity firms. Prior to that, and I mean, like I just came into like, just nothing. And then I go to Salesforce and I remember like what blew me away is like I think it was like in one of our SEs or something like that, sent out an email and he was just like, here are the 9X codes and 6 codes for all of the industries that buy the most from Salesforce. And oh, by the way, we have all of that in Salesforce. So you can cross-reference your territory. And it's like, surprise, surprise, B2B SaaS companies buy more Salesforce than janitorial services. And then they're like, okay, well, that's really helpful. Now, which of my customers are B2B SaaS companies? And then in like a second, you have that. And I just remember being so blown away by that because so many organizations don't have that. Now, yes, when I log into the account, there were 17 duplicate contacts for John Doe. Yes, I'll give you that. But I was just happy that like we had like the baseline foundation. Like I had a place to start. I could see how healthy customers were. I could take my existing accounts and triage who was healthy and who wasn't. So I guess it's all like a degree. And maybe when you were trying to like build out marketing campaigns, you're like, I got 17 contacts in the same org. And so from your perspective, it was a mess. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting about that is really perspective, right? I've been a CMO a couple of times by that time, so I had a very different level of expectations of like, when I go in Salesforce, it will be like the clean data, the CRM will be the cleanest CRM, and then the marketing automation platform. And I like, oh my gosh. And then it was no different, by the way, to pull it back. Pardot, we were the worst marketing automation player, like doing ourselves internally than what we were selling. It just happens where it's the expectation, the bar was very high. But in 100% of the companies I think you and I work, data is like the biggest challenge for them is like, where is your data? How do you run campaign on all this data?
Well, and this brings us back to the conversation about AI. Like you can't make AI work, especially at scale. It's one thing to just pop in a ChatGPT or Claude and say, research this company, go research Pepsi and give me some insights that I can use in my meeting. It's another thing to do this at scale across an organization. You need that data layer. But I want to take this back to what you said, and then I'm going to take it back to AI. So can you define, you listed off 3 things, and I'm not sure I remember them off the top of my head. Yeah, you had alignment, and then what was the next one?
On what? On
well,
AI?
You just mentioned the 3 biggest problems in go-to-market. Alignment.
Oh, yeah. The 3 biggest problems were that our go-to-market team is not in alignment. Heroic sales is really saving the day for them time and time again, and they are the last to the deal, so it's almost false positive.
So I think the third one is pretty obvious, but could you define the first 2?
Yeah. So the first one is really the fact that they have no clarity. They do not have, the marketing is running their own campaigns, like the CMO example I gave you. And then sales is focused, like it's almost like marketing, give me leads, sales, give me deals, and, CS or product team just create some thrills, with product features and stuff. I feel like that's the general market. And honestly, Eddie, I've wondered about it, and I feel like I've led to this conclusion that it happens when the CEO is not confident enough to manage them all together. He or she feels like they all just need to do their job well and we will get through it, and they're just not educated in this part of it. And I had to go through it myself of that. To run a better organization, I have to own go-to-market. That was our biggest research outcome, is that the companies in which the CEO owns go-to-market, it's mind-blowing. So for example, Yamini Rangan, who's the CEO of HubSpot now, and Brian Halligan, who was before, they both give a quote for the book. And without even blinking an eye, they said, I own go-to-market. It's a publicly traded company. No questions. I go and ask a $10 million, $20 million company, same thing. The CEO thinks, yeah, I own it. CEOs typically just know that, yeah, I own it. Nobody gives me credit for it, or that's fine, but I own go-to-market. But if you go ask the CMO or the CRO of that company, they might feel like they own go-to-market. And that's where the issue becomes, because their myopic view of go-to-market messes the business altogether. So that's the number one, is like that the team is not aligned enough to do it. And heroic sales is literally that, which is, man, every quarter or every month we hit our numbers somehow, but it's only because Jim and Sally, they make their numbers. And if they don't somehow, and we don't know what process they follow, but somehow they crush it and we are over the hump. But if they didn't do what they do, we can't. And so the quota attainment ratio is very, very low.
That's exactly it for me. And I think this is a great tie-in back to AI and why you can't layer AI on top of a broken foundation. Because for me, those two things are indicative of a broken foundation. Now, I'm not a marketing expert like you, so I might ask you about the whole last in the deal thing. I've heard other folks say that this is happening because you're just spending all your ad dollars trying to capture demand instead of create it. And so what you're doing is you're just buying ads so that you can be vendor number 3 or 4 in the eval.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
Well, it's part of ad. It's also part of with AI hype. Like right now, one of the greatest challenge, Eddie, I see is there are lots and lots of companies that are having an incredible swing at it, where everybody's ready to test a new AI. Like we're in the gold rush era right now of, all right, oh, you do this thing. Oh, that sounds cool. Let me go try it. And so people would just sign up all day long. But guess what? Nobody's paying for a lot of it. So these companies, I'm seeing at least 50 companies in our portfolio where we advise and we do certain things. Out of the 50 companies, about 35, I'll almost say 40 companies, I can see they're going to go under. They're not going to see 2027. Unless something miraculous happen. And the reason is because those are all hype businesses. So they are just doing one little thing better. Like, for example, I use Superhuman for my emails because it's just easier for me. I can keep everything in possible. Another company just raised 28 million. This was a few months ago, to put the ability to put and sync with your calendar and auto draft emails. Just simple thing. Oh, that's a really cool feature. I would like that. A week later, Eddie, I kid you not, Superhuman released that, hey, we now do that too. You can connect to your thing. So it's like, I'm like, why would I switch? So the other company that just raised $28 million, I'm thinking about it as like, that money is gone because they already have such a big market share. And if they are the third in the deal that is comparing between, let's say, Superhuman and that company, they will go with Superhuman because the better brand it's the same price. So the last in the deal is the race to the bottom, and its AI is really the shiny object. Lots of people are getting into it, but the percentage of winners is going to be so few. I'm scared for a lot of that because they are all raising money, and that's why the VC world is so upside down right now.
Well, and even Superhuman, I tried it out myself and I dropped it. I might try it again because I want that calendar feature, by the way. I've actually been researching it. But okay, so let's take this back. So I think for me, what I'm seeing with AI, when you try to think about how do we implement AI in our go-to-market across the go-to-market organization in an institutional or enterprise way that's going to drive revenue and impact. And we're going to see, like, one of the metrics I've been seeing lately that I like is just like, what's the ARR per rep or per head count, right? Like, if we double revenue per employee because we're using all these AI tools, like, I can make some arguments against that, but that's a really strong rubric for thinking about whether or not this is actually driving impact. And if you have, let me focus in on hero sales first. Hero sales, to the point you made, is just such an indicator that we don't have a process. Because, like, when I was at Salesforce, we had some salespeople that are crushing it. They were at like 2x quota. Now, part of that was the fact that even as great as Salesforce is, like, territories weren't great, especially I was in New York. And so you have like one zip code that has like all the revenue. Whereas, like, I had a colleague that our first year, we weren't just New York, and she like covered all of Ohio. And it's like, okay, cool. So if you're building territories on zip codes, that works. But then you get to Manhattan and there's like one zip code, Silicon Alley, where all the hot, software companies are. So that was an issue. And that contributed to whomever owned that territory outperforming. But the thing that I saw is there were fundamental steps in the process that, save the absolute worst reps, they weren't skipping. And so then you wouldn't have a rep that's like 10x another rep. Like when I was I started my career with Wells Fargo, and this might not be a fair comparison because it's really not a sales organization. And ironically, the CEO got dragged in front of Congress and had to resign. I don't know if you remember all that stuff, because after my time, there were salespeople that were creating fake accounts, and the CEO was like, I didn't know about it. Well, that's your job. And so he had to resign. This is pretty nasty. But I was at 504% of my quota. And it's not because I'm such a great salesperson. I'm really not. But like, I was getting different reports than everybody. I was making cold calls. Nobody else was making cold calls. They were waiting for people to walk into the bank and then trying to see if they could do their $15,000 auto loan. And I was like, what if I just call people that have $500,000 home equity lines of credit? Because that was my limit, was $500,000, and just start closing $500,000 deals one at a time. Well, that's like a fundamentally different process, right? I had different tech, I had different prospects, I had a different thing I was selling. And so I was at 504% of quota, not because I was like the world's best banker ever. I just had a totally different process. And then when you think of like, well, how do we layer AI on top of an organization where we have these hero salespeople? You have to go back and say, like, what is our sales process? What is a qualified lead? When do reps follow up on inbound leads? What type of prospect should we go after? Who's our ICP? What is that step-by-step process? Do we research the account before we reach out, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? You need all of these things mapped out before you can start to layer AI on top of that. Otherwise, you're just going to get like really abysmal results.
You know what I love about your story, Eddie, is that what you did was you asked the question, where can you grow the most, in a really interesting way. And you said, well, I can grow the most by selling $110,000 deals, or like one big $100,000 or $1 million deal, or like a combination of that. And then that's fundamentally it. It's that reframing of it. In a way, it was the classic account-based marketing technique. Is like you're looking at it and saying, well, where do I think? On that note, I was just pulling up something here. I'm going to do a keynote in 2 weeks from now, and I did a whole research around it. Here is what came out of that research. And you mentioned revenue per employee. Based on that research, almost every CEO, like I left the data is still running, but I could see a majority of the CEO, I should say, is looking at these two metrics, revenue per employee and NRR, being the two metrics that they're really doing well. Number two, what came out of that was that service as a software business model is booming and doing better than software as a service model.
Wait, what service is a software model?
Okay, service as a software model is like, we're all aware as of obviously software is SaaS model, right? We all understand that. But you flip it as like, well, what is a service as a software model? Is literally saying that instead of selling a software, you're actually selling a service, and the software is on the back end to produce whatever you need to do. So,
is that different from tech-enabled services?
I think tech-enabled, you could call it, but the problem is that when you call it a tech-enabled services, people are still trying to sell tech. And in this case, you're not selling to tech. So I'll give you a classic example of that. Today, you will look at all the ABM companies, like even the company I started, Terminus. the idea somebody would buy $100,000 software, and then they would sign a 3-year contract with you. And then you have to hire somebody who needs to be really good at running Terminus or Demandbase or 6sense or whatever of those technologies. I mean, you're literally talking about $500,000 to $1 million investment even before you got anything in it. Like that was the software as a service model, right? Service as a software model is saying that, hey, I'm going to go to an agency who's going to run this for me. So in a way, it's tech enabled, but I'm going to go and I'm not going to worry about what they use. I don't need to be, as a company, be specialist in a Demandbase or a Terminus or a 6sense kind of thing. I just need them to worry about it. Let them have whatever licenses. If the data changes from ZoomInfo to Sales Intel to Apollo, I don't need to be an independent. Like I just want to run an ABM campaign that produces X kind of results. And I want to see that really, really well. And I will pay $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 a month to do that. So we're seeing a massive boom in that kind of stuff versus somebody trying to buy, companies that are trying to sell $1,000 or even a $10,000 software today per month is struggling. It's struggling big time. But services but companies that are selling services that says, this is what I'm going to do for you. And they're using software in the back end to do it. They're booming. And I think I'll have some really good numbers to share in a couple of weeks because I'm looking at the data right now. It's insane how well the services software market is doing right now.
It's so interesting. I don't try to use this podcast to just overtly pitch what we do, but like that's what we do. I mean, we started off as a Salesforce partner, and I love Salesforce, but like there's some products at Salesforce that like we just don't believe in. And, you know, it got to a point where we're like, I mean, I think even in the beginning, like we still didn't have a choice. I mean, people buy Salesforce and they've got other tools. And for us, it became really important. Like we want to be agnostic. Like, yes, we think for most mature companies, at least as of today, Salesforce is still the CRM of choice. But when you start to look at other options, we want to be able to say, you know, these are the tools that are going to help you get the job done. And so I so much believe in that model. I just wasn't familiar with that terminology. When I think about tech-enabled services, it just takes it a step further, and you say, okay, we're not just going to charge you for the physical labor of our consultants, even if we're like logging into Salesforce and building stuff. Let's go build technology so that we can do that better and faster, maybe charge you less, also have higher margins, and everybody wins.
Yeah. Well, as a matter of fact, I think the future is like just no interface. Like you don't need a new interface. Essentially what should happen for you, your service would be saying that, hey, your service should literally be, and we're just talking about it. You can delete this if this doesn't go in here. I'm okay with that. Is like where they should be able to get into a ChatGPT version into your software and ask questions.
So I've been talking about this so much recently, and like, I'll ask you this question, right? So I posted about this the other day. I'm like, with AI, do we need Salesforce? And today, as of the date of this recording, I think we do. But fast forward 5 or 10 years, and I posted this and I said, like, what do I want as a CEO, like using Salesforce? And also somebody that like I run a small business, so I'm still doing a lot of sales. I don't want to log into Salesforce. I want the accounts created for me, the contacts created for me. I want the emails synced. I want the calendar invite synced. I want my call transcript like added. I want somebody to go read the call transcript and put that in there. I like reporting. I want, you know, the report to just tell me what I want. And how do I know that I want this? I already have this. It's not all AI driven. I have employees, and like I'm just like, I have my assistant like, hey, create this new contact in Salesforce. I have our team, that our consulting team, and I'm like, go build me this like report in Salesforce or HubSpot or whatever. I don't do any of this stuff myself. And I'm like, so wait. And like, my dad said something to me a long time ago. He's like, you can do really well in life if you can just give everybody what rich people have. And I was like, that's an interesting and weird thing. And then Uber comes out and you're like, oh, everybody has a private limo driver now. I'm like, okay, I get it. And it's like, everybody, like I used to work in, after Wells Fargo, I went and worked on Wall Street, and it's just like, you couldn't get any of these guys to log into Salesforce. And they all had like their team of analysts doing it for them. And I used to fight that. And I was like, this is so terrible. And now it's like, wait, that's what everybody wants. So, or I'm running out of time. I got like 2 minutes left. But like, if AI can do that for you, and AI is like updating every record in Salesforce for you, every email, every call, every meeting note, everything. And then, you know, you can just go into Slack or whatever and just ask it questions. And then even when you want to report, it just tells you, here's your report. Like, show me all the opportunities from X date to Y date and what was our close rate. And then I don't want to log into Salesforce. Then what do I need Salesforce for? Can I just move this to a database?
Yeah. And well, I mean, the future belongs to where, if you look at the stock prices, it's very indicative of all these companies today, right? So I think, and some of them will come out of it and do really well, but some of them are going to go to they're going to die, some of these CRM companies. So I believe that you wouldn't need, based on our research and just pontificating it, is like, it would be a world of one interface, which means you have one ChatGPT, Gemini style interface where you have a conversation with that does everything on the back end for you. And the pro of that is like anybody can do it. And that's the negative of it, because you may not want everybody else to do and have access to everything that you want. And that's where the problem is that, can that happen? I think that can happen in like a month. If you really, really think and try to do it. The challenge is that then everybody will have the same access, and you may not want everybody to have the same financial access or know about everybody's quotas and know about everybody's this and that. So there's a level of
but you can build that security in.
That honestly is one of the greatest challenges. I mean, if you listen to Anthropic CEO, he was at the last Inbound conference, and I literally sat and just watched Yamini and Darius, what is his name? I forgot his name. Darius, I think. So they both were doing this interview, and he was saying that, man, the biggest challenge why he has not gone beyond engineering, and that's how they build multi-billion-dollar company so quickly. The reason he has not been able to get into any other field other than engineering, they're trying tech, they're trying go-to-market, but you would not hear about that in Anthropic getting into it, is because of security. You can't, the data layer, the security layer has to be so deep. AI is able to you can find your way, get whatever data you want if the data is there. It will get you that data. So layering on the security is a harder thing than most people thought it to be.
So much to unpack, but we're at time. I want to be respectful of your time. Sangram, where can people find you?
Find me on LinkedIn, and I get to write a lot of research. There are links to a lot of the research we write, but that's where you can find me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks so much, man. That was a fun conversation, Eddie.
I enjoyed it. Thanks for listening to the episode. If this resonated, please give us a 5-star rating and a follow. It helps us reach more people, and you get our latest and greatest content without having to search for it. And if you're looking for hands-on help in go-to-market strategy and/or RevOps, please reach out to us. We help our clients with everything from annual planning to improving processes in go-to-market, implementing systems to support those processes, and go-to-market AI. We're always happy to offer a free consultation to help you identify the best opportunities to improve your go-to-market engine with or without our help. You can find us at unionsquareconsulting.com, and the info will be in our show notes.